Kinetics has been made in association with Roadrace Parts. Top quality, best prices, no compromise. Head to roadraceparts.com to get parts for your racing vehicles now. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Velocity Kinetics in association with Roadrace Parts. Now, today's episode, the Caterham Conundrum. It's the weekend of Le Mans. There's a car brand with the Caterham name on there, and there's been a lot of news about the Caterham Formula 1 team, or rumours should I say, not news exactly, it's just a rumour mill doing the rounds. So it's brought to my attention something that I'd like to discuss really. Just a brief history of the Caterham team. I'll have to refer to my notes. The team started in 2010 under the name Lotus Racing. It was powered by a Cosworth engine, running a rather nice green and yellow livery. The car looked rather nice actually, even though it wasn't the most aerodynamically advanced. Team's owned by Tony Fernandez, and it had Mike Gascoigne as the technical director of the team, which is always a good thing. With Heikki Kovalainen and Jarno Trulli, two very experienced drivers, two race winners. They both raced at the front. You got Jarno Trulli, who raced with Renault when it was dominant and took Fernando Alonso to his victory in the championship. And you got Kovalainen with McLaren, who McLaren won the championship with Hamilton. I think Kovalainen was with that team at that time. So they had a mixed 2010. They came out the best of the new teams. All three teams powered by Cosworth. Marussia was about middling, and the HRT with its Dallara built chassis was a bit crap. But it was a valiant effort, and like I say, it secured a nice spot on the podium. Not podium, sorry, spot on the championship. Podium was what they obviously daydreamed about, but a million miles away from it. Into 2011. It was the whole Team Lotus debacle. Basically what happened is Tony Fernandez had apparently purchased the rights to the Team Lotus name from James Hunt's brother, and was racing under that. Now the previous year for Lotus Racing, Fernandez had permission from Proton, who owned Lotus, to run the Lotus name, and he also sought put consent from the Chapman family. Colin Chapman, of course, the founder of Lotus, simplified and add lightness. He had permission so Fernandez had permission to use the Lotus name. Now, Team Lotus is a very successful team within Formula 1. It's a team, in my eyes, is no more. It died a long time ago. So bringing it back was not anything that should have even been attempted. They shouldn't have even daydreamed of using the name. It would have been like Brawn coming back as Tyrrell. I know Brawn did think about using the name Tyrrell, because through the ages it was Tyrrell, then BAR, then BAR, Honda, Brawn. But it's something that they should never have done, never attempted. For the Team Lotus though, they swapped over to a Renault power rather than Cosworth, which sort of indicated that they were meaning business, and again the car continued to look rather good, still piloted by Heikki Kovalainen and Jarno Trulli, and continued to point that team in the right direction, and they still came out best of the newer teams in 2011. However, the debacle of that year, it sort of set me a little bit against that team. To me, like I say, Lotus died a long time ago. It was fine when it was Lotus Racing, so it sort of had permission to use the Lotus name, like the Lotus team in Formula 1 at the moment. I like that, because that's, it's not pretend to be anything it's not. Whilst it might run a livery that's similar to what they used to run when it was JPS, John Player Special Lotuses, it's not trying to be something it's not, which the team at the back of the grid towards the back of the grid were doing. Now, because of that debacle in 2011 with Team Lotus, the team came in as Caterham. Tony Fernandez, I believe, he actually owns the Caterham Car Company, which is a kit car company, something that you would build in your shed, in your garage. Now, I agree with something Tiffany Dell said at the time. Tiffany Dell, the presenter of Fifth Gear and a former Formula 1 driver, touring car driver, etc. He said, his tweet was, "I'm not sure I'm comfortable seeing the name Caterham in Formula 1. What he meant by Caterham being a kit car is not exactly the byword in precision engineering, whereas Formula 1 is obviously about precision engineering. So it's still something that makes me giggle a little bit, maybe a little more than it should. For 2012, they were going to run Heikki and Trulli again, which would have made the most sense. They've also been using the Red Bull running gear from 2011. They had permission to use Red Bull rear end, basically, so they're running a year-old back end to a car. And they also moved base to be Lotus, because Lotus is based in Norfolk. I'd say it's technically my home county. They set up base in Norfolk, then they moved to Leafield in Oxford, Oxfordshire, sorry. Former base of the Arrows Formula 1 team and the Super Guru Formula 1 team. Now, to be honest, I don't understand the reasoning behind that, because you've already got a base in one place, why move it? That said, why didn't they just set up in that base in the first place? It's sort of one of these annoying conundrums. Trulli was replaced with Vitaly Petrov for the money that he brought to the team. It's apparent that the team was starting to have cash flow issues in that situation. The best finish was 11th at the last race of the season. Just taking the place from Marussia. It was sort of an indication that Caterham, Lotus, whatever they call themselves, starting to move backwards, and Marussia started to make a move forwards. And then we went on to 2013 with that monstrosity of a vehicle, piloted by Peek and Van der Gaard, by Charles Peek and Guido Van der Gaard. Visually, as I mentioned, the car looked a bit of a mess. In that, what I mean is, whilst I'm sure there was some aerodynamic logic behind the way the car looked, it surprised me how vile it was. Marussia had produced a very clean looking car, but again, how aerodynamically sophisticated it was, I don't know. But it was just cleaner and seemed to do the job better, even still just powered by Cosworth, and rather than swapping over to a more superior Renault power. But the team continued its slight backwards step. I mean, they still remained ahead of Marussia in the championship. Again, only just though. But their best place finish was 14th, and there was one less team to contend with, HRT. Granted, they were probably still going to be ahead of HRT anyway, but the odds for Caterham to finish ahead had been greatly improved. Then we're on to this year, 2014. Charles Peek and Guido Van der Gaard are out. Ericsson and Kobayashi are in. Kobayashi is fantastic in the sense, if you want the wheels driven off something, it may not necessarily be the quickest, but certainly driven off it and raced as hard as it can physically go, Kobayashi is perhaps one of the best in the business for that. The car design itself for this year, I'm conflicted on it in the sense that I like ideas that are a little outside the box. So I quite like the fact that Lotus this year thought about, we'll go for a walrus style nose, despite how phallic all the noses on the grid look like. I know I said Russ, in association with Roadrace Parts, we wouldn't post anything pornographic, but to be honest, like I said, they look exceptionally, all the noses look exceptionally phallic, and the Caterham looks abysmal in that sense. It makes no sense to me aerodynamically. I'm sure there's some logic behind it, but even with my limited aerodynamic knowledge, it doesn't look as efficient as it could be. I'm not sure what they would need to do to make it work. Probably just go with a similar nose to what everyone else has got, but like I say, it doesn't make much sense to me. But there's also something else that's been winding me up a hell of a lot about the Caterham team. Fernandez. I remember reading something that was on either F1 Fanatic, BBC F1 or the F1 Times, because they're the main three sources I go to for my Formula 1 news, that Fernandez said if the team don't improve by the end of this year, he's out. He's not going to support the team, fund the team anymore. What that'll do to the Caterham group, I don't know, so I don't know what that'll do to the LMP2 team that they're currently running at Le Mans, which I apologise, I keep looking over in this direction. I've sort of got the Le Mans on at the moment. But what's going to happen there? What's going to happen to the road car division? What's going to happen to the team itself? What annoys me a little bit about Fernandez is the fact it basically feels like he's gotten tired of his toy. Caterham was his new favourite toy, and he's just, over time, gotten fed up with it. Why? I remember Sir Jackie Stewart in his autobiography. It was one of my favourite non-fiction books. But Sir Jackie Stewart, when he was commenting about starting Stewart Grand Prix, they reckoned it was 5 years between starting the team and getting your first podium. Now, that said, teams back then were still spending a hell of a lot, but perhaps not spending as much as they have done recently. I don't think the spending was quite so high. Like I say, still millions, but maybe not quite so high. So it was more achievable. Now obviously Red Bull and Ferrari and McLaren have all moved the goalposts of spending, Williams obviously moved it as well during their time as well. So it's perhaps no longer 5 years between that and your first podium, maybe that between that and your first points. Now Marussia have again come up this year with a nice clean looking car. They've swapped to Ferrari power and from Cosworth. I don't know what they've done about the KERS unit, so I don't know the KERS and the ERS unit. I don't know if they bought it from Ferrari, if they've made their own, or whether they've kept the Williams unit from last year or not, or got kit from Williams. I don't know what they've done in that regard. But it feels very much that Caterham have just thought big and not worked out how to get there. So it'd be like me in my overweight form going, yes, I'm going to run a marathon, and not actually doing any sort of training or understanding how much training is involved in that. I know there's a hell of a lot, and I'm not the most sporty of people, so I couldn't say as to how much training I would need to undergo to actually get to marathon level ability. But it's just like me saying, right, I'm gonna go run a marathon. Where's my trainers? I'm off to London. That's what it feels like with the Caterham, the whole Team Lotus thing. It just feels like he's bought the name, not made any sort of clever signings. The only clever signings they had was Mike Gascoigne, but he's now chief. He's something to do with the Caterham Group, but he's not very involved in the Formula 1 team anymore, which I don't think is a good move. It's far from it. They've not tried to make any key technical signings. McLaren tried to get some Red Bull staff, and there's been that whole fuss there. Ferrari got James Allison, the person behind Lotus E22, the one that Raikkonen and Grosjean piloted quite well. That actually at one point was the second best car on the grid after the Red Bull. They've not kept an experienced driver lineup, so they dropped Hakey. They didn't even run him very often in practice. I know the team needed money to survive. They needed a pay driver, but what Hakey could have given them an experience, or what Jarno Trulli could have continued to give him an experience, or what Rubens Barrichello, Pedro de la Rosa, just someone who's been around for quite a while. The experience that they could have given that team rather than having all these new people. Granted, the team is a Minardi style team, so the whole point is they get people into on the grid. You perform well there, you'll move up the grid. It's as simple as that. It's a bit like Mark Webber and Fernando Alonso. They both did their time at Minardi. They both had their way in, and look where they are now. Webber's racing Porsche 919, I think it is, at Le Mans at the moment. But he then ascended to Red Bull. Fernando ascended through to Renault, and then he's gone on to the greatest marque in sport of Ferrari, and obviously went on to another great marque in sport of McLaren. So, you know, look, it's a confusing situation for Caterham, and I really don't know what to say on it. I know the whole thing is something that really winds me up, though. Fernandez saying that he's going to, you know, the team's not up for sale, we're just needing significant investment. So the team is in dire financial straits to the point where it almost needs to be considered being put up for sale, and it's really what it's sort of covering for, which is ridiculous considering the amount of he's got money to plough into Queen's Park Rangers and into his airlines and into his and into the other parts of the Caterham Group. Like I said, there's an LMP2 team with the Caterham name on it. So somewhere there's the money. Plough some into the Formula 1 team, for God's sake. Get a technical signing. Try and secure James Allison or someone from Red Bull who's got half a brain. Heck, do something that Williams wouldn't do at the time when they had Adrian Newey, and offer some equity in the team. Could have even attempted to lure Adrian Newey away. Granted, it probably would have ended with everyone laughing at them, laughing at Caterham, that is. But they could have tried to secure him and said, look, here's X percentage of our team, make us go fast. Now, they did the only real good thing that they've ever done, I have to give them credit for, was swapping over to a Renault engine, because the Cosworth engine was not very drivable. I mean, you saw the change between FW33 and 34 when they swapped from a Cosworth engine, when Williams swapped from a Cosworth engine to a Renault engine, and how much better the car became. Granted, though, the engine's not everything in Formula 1. You need to have the aero to go with it. But the Renault engine was the best swap, and then getting the Red Bull running gear was a good thing as well. How much of that tie-in still exists, I don't know. At the moment, the team is being hampered by the Renault engine. It's not very good. At the moment, it's not quite there in terms of what the Mercedes units have achieved. The Ferrari unit's not quite there as well, but it's a hell of a lot closer than the Renault unit is. So it's tough to say really what they need to do. But Caterham need to think what the hell they're going to do. Simply because if they go, that's another small team gone, another joke, which they'll be regarded as, particularly with this phallic-looking Formula 1 car. Another team that just sought glory and didn't want to put the work in. Which doesn't happen. Fernandez, don't give up on the Caterham team. If nothing else, keep hold of it until, if you're going to sell it, make sure you keep hold of it until it's actually sold and don't just go, fuck it, I'm off. That's not fair. It's not fair on all the hundreds of people that you've employed at Caterham. And get some more experienced staff in. That is above everything what is important. And also the car you need to work on reliability. Granted, with money comes reliability. But I think with all that, if the team got a great technical signing, a great designer, someone like Adrian Newey, James Allison, or someone else from Red Bull, or maybe even an ex-McLaren designer. I'm trying to think of the guy, Mike Coughlin, I think. It's the guy I'm thinking of who designed the 35. Hey, considering what he did for the 34, at Williams FW34, granted the FW35 was not anything to write home about, but he could have helped on the Caterham. They've not tried anything. It's sort of one of these things, I want this, but I don't want the work for it. Like a get-rich-quick scheme. You don't appreciate it. And Fernandez has been notably absent from the paddock this year, which is not, for someone who owns a Formula 1 team, that is pretty diabolical. I just wish that he pull his socks up, get his arse in gear, drive that team forward. It's not going to go forward if there's no one at the helm who doesn't want to drive it. Velocity Kinetics has been made in association with Roadrace Parts. Top quality, best prices, no compromise. Head to roadraceparts.com to get parts for your racing vehicles now.